Sorry, for those of you watching the recorded version, we are bringing you into a meeting that's already a little bit in progress. For those of you live, we are going to send it back to Susan.
We have a great document on our website that Bob Long found for us. And if you haven't had to use this document, you're going to hope that you never have to use it. It's under Education Resources, and we're right here on this page. You would click over here, go all the way to the bottom, all the way to the bottom, and right here, the Helping Handbook for a resource for individuals, families, and small businesses. The cover title doesn't give the whole story. For individuals and small businesses affected by the summer 2021 California wildfires. And they have a big disclaimer that it's really to help people from last time's wildfires, but I'm just going to show you the table of contents here. What to do if you're a victim of a wildfire. That's who this thing is for. Housing, employment, insurance, FEMA, SBA loan assistance, business interruption, personal finances and taxes, other kinds of things you might be eligible for. If you're an immigrant, that's section there, document record replacement, fraud protection, prevention, if anybody lost their life, healthcare, loyal referral, disaster help, and other resources. And it was put together by an attorney firm, but they totally do not promote themselves. And Bob found this and just doesn't have enough good words to say about it. And it looks extremely comprehensive, 95 pages. And if you haven't had to use it yet, hope that you'll never have to use it. But for those who do need it, there it is. And back to you, Scott.
Just a comment, the nice thing about this document is that it lists phone numbers and email addresses. So you don't have to go looking for things. And it's got a great glossary. So it truly is, it's a one-stop, even though it's 97 pages, it's still, if you have to use it, it's a great document and quite complete. Thank you.
Good stuff. Thanks to Susan and Bob for bringing that resource to our attention. Moving on to community partner reports. From CAL FIRE, I believe tonight we have Matt Wallen. What do you got for us?
Okay, well, this is kind of impromptu. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, this is kind of off the cuff, and but just as a briefing, I guess, where we're at right now with preparations for the upcoming fires. We are hanging on. We had 4 dozers last summer, and one of them was on loan from Region to support us additionally. And it's not just unique to the Nevada Yuba Placer unit. There's several units across the state that got extra mechanized firefighting equipment. And some of the reasoning behind that is our lack of crews that have been dwindling for about the last 8 or 9 years. And we are currently down to 2 crews, inmate crews staffed at Washington Ridge. We have a 1 CNA crew, and then two crews at the Placer Center in North Auburn. And we are trying to hang on to this 4th dozer. Region has asked for it back, but we're trying to hang on to it just to help us with the upcoming season. We're looking additionally at going in to March with the possibility of some level of wildfire staffing. It would be an early up staffing event, and that's still kind of up in the air, but I am hearing hints of that. And it's kind of an effort to get full staffing for 9 months every fire season statewide. I think that's kind of the writing on the wall, is that they're looking at that, and that would be staffing from March to November. And it would be a very wise use of taxpayer dollars, because in the wetter years, if we ever get those again, or even just any year for now at that matter, we would be able to do a lot more fuels reduction work, both pre and post fire season, when we have lighter activity. So we may again get one station staffed additional per battalion. It would be a light staffing, but it's better than nothing. And still nothing is official yet from Sacramento. We are looking at hiring a bunch of new seasonals to replace folks that have promoted and or left the agency. Like every agency, I guess, every walk of occupation in the country are seeing a lot of low numbers in employment right now. And we're trying to be preemptive in getting a survey of who's coming back this summer, who's promoted and will be promoting. But we do stand a chance to be a little light on our firefighters this summer if we didn't get a lot of new applicants. And nobody in this unit really has their finger on that pulse, but that's kind of the concern at the administrative management level, is being able to not only meet our vacancies, but hire more engines, staffing, and as well as the Firefighter One hand crew program. With regard to engines, we are getting 2 additional engines this summer to staff full-time. Right now, it's for the unit. We have 21 frontline units. We have several reserve units that we staff during dangerous fire times. We'll upstaff, or if we have resource drawdown to other large fires in the area to make our numbers robust. But don't confuse that we are getting, and so are other units across the state, additional engines this summer. We're supposed to be getting 2. And right now it's looking like they will be staffing 1 at one of our fire stations in the Truckee area, and the other one will be staffed in Loma Rica for a second engine down in the valley. I might be going into an area here shortly where I could lose you, but I think someone just texted a question, but I couldn't really read it while I'm driving.
We'll address questions later at the end if you happen to still be with us. But I think we're losing you, and we do need to press on a little bit here. So let's kick it over to Patrick Mason. You with us?
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, I'm here. Good evening. With the Nevada County Consolidated Fire District, we're still pushing ahead with our green waste bins that we got on the grant back in October. I mean, timing is everything, I guess. Those communities who put in those applications are getting those green waste bins now, and the first one was actually dropped today out on Monte Vista. But they're able to get a good jump on all that storm damage that came down. But we're looking at dropping a bin right now, one up on Tranquility Lane. I mentioned Monte Vista, Lost Lake Road out off Greenhorn, Round Mountain Ranch, Lava Dome, Champion Mine, Lightning Tree Road. So those are all communities that we've already done the inspections, and they're going to be getting those bins placed as soon as they get a chunk of their work done, because the bins are only there for 1 week. Moving on to our OES DSI inspectors. They are out right now. We do have the proactive inspections going on. They're currently working the North Ponderosa Road area, working their way down to Mystic Mine and Bitney Springs. Once they hit Bitney Springs, they're going to go down to Pleasant Valley Road, hang a right, and come back up the French Corral. At the same time, we're going to have a second inspector working Tyler Foot Road. And keep in mind, these are all private roads that they're going to be doing the proactive inspections on. And then when they have time, they're going to finish out Lake Vera, Purdon, and North Bloomfield, all the way out to the river canyon edges. So that's currently what we got going on in a nutshell, and I'll pass it back to you.
And that's a lot. So thank you for sharing, and thanks for the work that you do. Paul Cummings or anyone from OES? I didn't see anyone, but are you with us tonight?
Hey Scott, how's it going? Paul Cummings from OES here.
Hey,
Sorry,
Paul.
my mouse died. Working mouseless. Getting over a little bit of a COVID cough, cold thing here. So sorry if my voice sounds a little bad. Yeah, so just quick update for us. We're working through the same challenges that CAL FIRE is having with staffing. We got high turnover right now. We're trying to bring people on and hire them in. So at least it's not fire season while we're doing that. So that's a good thing. I wanted to touch on briefly the winter storm. I mean, I know that this affected everybody really in Western Nevada County, even some folks starting up the hill. A lot of you probably watched us on the town hall, so I won't recap everything, but it really was an all hands on deck, full court press to try to respond to that event and try to address the unmet needs in the community. We got our EOC open. We had a lot of people to thank that really came together, from Freed to 211 to CAL FIRE, Sheriff Search and Rescue, and just many of you at the community level, neighbors helping neighbors to get folks through that. And now we're really dealing with the recovery piece. So we're working with a lot of different agencies in the community to help them be made whole again fiscally, working through the state, hoping for potential state reimbursement, and then also the county for the reimbursement piece. And then really now what's on our plate is this green waste problem. So I'm sure we'll have a ton of questions on this. We know it's a huge problem. We recognize that. Nevada County Consolidated, our partner, and OES, we know, and CAL FIRE, that this is going to become fuel for the fire season if we don't get it taken care of. And I just want to manage expectations that we have a lot of different programs that are out there, and we do have some county-driven programs, but it's going to take a community-level push to try to address this problem, because this isn't just something we can throw money at, and there's just not that many state or federal dollars for that. I do want to just remind folks of all the different green waste options. You can burn it. You can go in on bins like Deputy Fire Marshal Patrick Mason talked about. You can rent a chipper as a neighborhood. You can split it. You can compost it. You can bring in goats. You can haul it to the transfer station. You can put it in your bin. There's a lot of things you can do with green waste. So try to exercise all of those options and just work off of that menu. I know people want to do a big green waste event, which we have coming. I want to talk about that, but those are in some ways resource limited. So I'm going to have a green waste event at the same site that we've been doing those, out off of Brunswick. Let me scroll down here and get to that info. That's going to be 12625 Brunswick Road, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. and 3 weekends. So March 11th, 12th, 13th, March 25th, 26th, and 27th, and then April 8th, 9th, and 10th. There's some press releases that we've already put out for that. And then we're leaning into some, ad buys and things, so that you're going to see this with the Union, Ubinet, things like that, running this free storm debris disposal event out there for folks to take their the things that came down. So I'll stop there. I know there's going to be questions in the chat, and I know there'll be questions probably at the end of the event, Scott, and so I'll stay on until then.
Thanks, Paul. We appreciate that. You're also getting some kudos in the chat as well. I want to make sure you saw those.
Great, thank you.
And then Jamie Jones, I believe you're with us.
I am. Good evening, everybody. Jamie Jones from Fire Safe Council. We have been incredibly busy, I think, just like all of our partners. Right now, we've been assisting in storm recovery efforts with the County of Nevada, helping amplify our chipping program for our residents in the community in the most impacted areas, and also partnering on the green waste event that will be coming up. And then our busy time of the year right now is there's multiple grant opportunities happening. We've just successfully submitted grants to Sierra Nevada Conservancy and throughout Cal OAS, the HMGP grant funding, which is Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. And we have submitted for the Deer Creek Fuel Break under that, as well as Lake Wildwood Fuel Break. Additionally, some planning funding for the Deer Creek Fuel Break under Sierra Nevada Conservancy. And then next up, we'll be applying for fire prevention grants next week. And we're really focused on, amplified chipping and green waste programming available to the community. We recognize that there's a plethora of storm debris added to our already excessive needs for green waste disposal. So we're really hoping to bring that one home to the community, because we need to have years of green waste and chipping programming available to everybody. So I will be reaching out to our Firewise communities, the coalition, our fire districts for support, letters of support on that grant. I think that we all want to see that programming continue to happen more than just in the springtime. I know that we got a lot of work to do. And then additionally, forest health grants are open and they're due March 4th. And so we'll be submitting for a phase 2 of our Western Nevada County Forest Health Objectives program that we were awarded last year. We've already made some great strides on that program. So other than that, we're going to continue to apply for grants and be available to the community. If you have any questions about any of our services that we can offer and help assist everybody with storm recovery, I'll be available for questions in the chat.
Thanks so much, Jamie, and all of our community partners. We appreciate what you're doing and the information you're bringing to us tonight. With that, I'm going to hand it off to Bob Long from the steering committee, who's leading and moderating our education spotlight. There,
I managed to take myself off mute. So everybody's favorite topic, insurance. I got the letter last month that many people have already got. My homeowners insurance doubled, but I was happy that it doubled, that it didn't disappear. So I guess that was the silver lining to the cloud. So we have 3 people that will speak with us tonight. The first one is Wanda Mertens. She's a local insurance broker, and she's going to tell us how you buy an insurance policy today in Nevada County. So Wanda, I saw you on here earlier. Where are you? Wanda? She was in the participant list.
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
Okay, yay. All right. Thank you, Bob, for asking me to speak this evening. The general consensus from everyone is that we're glad we have insurance in place, and how do we deal with the changes? Having talked in the past about the difference between protection class and fire line, what we are observing on the insurance side is that there's a mutualism going on with all the insurance carriers, that they're recognizing protection class and fire line, and they're reading the patterns the same way. We have defined a better servicing for folks as far as packaging for the time of loss. So it's important for folks to understand to have good records, photography. Don't wait to evacuate, be prepared to evacuate. But when it comes to the cost of insurance, negotiating through your policies is the best tool you can have. With the California Fair Plan, they've opened up more deductibles, but I think a lot of people initially took the Fair Plan as more of a policy that looked like the comprehensive ones, where you had a lot of coverages on every line of coverage, whether it was dwelling, separate structure, personal property, loss of use. I would just like everyone to know that it's important to go in and rediscuss every line of coverage with the FAIR plan and define it to what your need is. We tend to emphasize replacement of the house and the value and the financial involvement we have with our properties. And so the dwelling amount and separate structures are probably where I see more people put the most weight of their policy, because if you don't go home tomorrow, that's what's going to put a roof back over your head. I do have information with the California FAIR plan. They have been reaching out to every insurance carrier that isn't currently working in the foothills, and they are trying to research and see what carriers would be or could be offering conventional policies. So far, I don't know how successful it's been, but I do know that there is I want to use the word a mutualism between the FAIR plan and the insurance industry to find a solution to make it a more comfortable and very clear insurance policy for homeowners in the foothills. I do know that building code upgrades are substantially increasing, and that the cost of rebuilding will be much more than we are traditionally used to. The same with the lack of labor, the cost of materials quadrupling in some cases. I would tell you, after probably over 80 losses that I've experienced over the past 5 years, that the majority of people, generally speaking, will tend to look for another house to buy rather than rebuild. And I'm hearing more and more people being more comfortable with that decision. I also feel, though, kudos to every consumer this year compared to the past 5 years. And that is, everyone is truly become aware of the risk. And I speak highly for the FireWise community members and everything you have participated in with CAL FIRE and the resource centers, with everything the county is doing. My feedback to those of you that are on this meeting tonight, please know your efforts are not going unnoticed. And please know that the consumers in general are way more receptive. And I know we get the participation, but I don't know that we often have the opportunity to hear from the consumers that they're working towards solutions rather than expecting it to be done. So circling back around as far as where insurance is, once the loss ratios are in for 2021, it'll be interesting to see how the consumer market is with the insurance market, whether we'll see small increases, inflation guard increases, building code increases. And I wouldn't expect to see any of those numbers till March, April, or even May. That being said, I am hearing of some companies that are still non-renewing. So it is important that if you get that notice, to feel comfortable to ask questions of your insurance carrier, your broker, whomever you're comfortable with, and do your due diligence for the research side. The feedback that I would like to share with everyone is going out and doing inspections. I see the areas that are being worked. And for that, once again, it's all about living through it. The insurance is here to get us on the other side. So good work to everyone. And if there's questions, please feel free to ask.
Wanda, maybe a couple of things you might mention. I know one of the things on my policy when it came around to renew is I had several options. I could have the value of my house plus 25%, the value of my house plus 50%. And then there was that wonderful questionnaire I had to fill out to tell them what my house even was. Mm-hmm. And, you know, custom bathrooms or custom kitchens, et cetera. Could you speak to that for just a moment?
Yeah. What that is referred to as is extended replacement. We have a replacement screen that we work, which is what basically establishes your initial dwelling amount. There's two things on a policy you have. You have a building code endorsement, which is usually 10% of your dwelling. And then you have this extended replacement endorsement. The 25% means you take your dwelling times 125%, and that gives you a total number. That is money that is to be used when you're rebuilding your home. And that is separate from the 10% that's a give for building codes. I would tell you, with the cost of labor and materials, just the timing, an average of 2 to 2.5 years is a minimum amount of time for rebuilding a home during fire season and moving forward. Only because you have so many steps you have to go through. So when you're looking at your policy, I think the first question you should always ask yourself is, am I willing to wait 2.5 years? And in doing so, am I willing to commit to the expense that it will cost with the building code requirements that will occur? A lot of our homes are older, and so the standards of performance will be different. Probably the one thing that I've seen in my claims that takes the longest time is getting the clearance to go back in on the property due to hazmat and toxins. So that can take 6 months, depending on the volume of loss. And then the accessibility of those who are cleaning up the property and can do it. And then, of course, FEMA with their skills and talents, and whomever else is brought in to test the soil to make sure you can get back in. So when you go in and you're talking about that, in your mind, have a direction for this season, because this is something you can reevaluate every year. And if this year you say, yep, I'm going to rebuild, that 150%, whatever that endorsement is well worth the money for the purpose of rebuilding. You almost have to look at your insurance policy right now, and it sounds odd, but I use it as it's a financial tool to secure your asset. And so if that extended endorsement is $125 and it costs you $200 for the year, it's a good investment for $200. If you can get $150, and I know AAA is very generous with their coverages. That is the most gracious way and the least expensive to get you additional coverage. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. And then
Okay.
the other thing, what is the decision to make when it's, if your house is a loss, to moving versus building? I mean, there's obviously the unknowns of what the cost is going to be if you build, but what happens with your insurance policy if you decide to move?
I don't know of any policy that restricts you from moving anywhere. The whole purpose of insurance is to keep a roof over your head. Now, whether you choose to do it here, or you choose to do it in Colorado or Washington or Maine or wherever the case may be, this policy, and that's why we have insurance, is to take care of us. When I'm working with clients, if they own their properties free and clear, there's a little more financial security as far as whether they want to move to San Diego or Irvine in Southern California, where it's much more expensive. If you have a mortgage on your house, you can take that money, you can pay off your mortgage, and then the balance of the money can be directed towards either a down payment for another house, or if you find a home, some people find homes twice as big for a third of the price. So it's a hard conversation to have with folks, because we're in a different environment than any of us would have ever expected or dreamt to be. Ed and I personally have decided if it was all gone tomorrow, we would not be waiting 2.5 years living in a rental, probably 20 or 30 miles away, simply to move back. We would want to establish a recovery process for us to emotionally get back on our feet and move forward. And I do see that a lot. Remember, you still own the land, and the good thing about it is it heals. So a lot of folks, I just say, make sure you keep your water source to your land and allow it to heal, because at a point that land will still have a value that is yours to do with as you see fit.
So if you have your house insured for $250,000, then if it is a total loss, then you would realize that amount of money if you decide to move to another community?
Yes, provided you don't have a lender, you know, and I would tell you from my experience with the different claims I have never seen anyone that has gone through a total loss that I've been involved with that hasn't come out on the other side, honestly, in a little better position. After you get through the emotional and the traumatic aspect of this whole thing, it's a healthy restart. But the money is meant to put a roof over your head, and that's why we have insurance.
If I could ask a question right now regarding this specific topic, I would appreciate it.
Sure, go ahead.
My name is Stephanie Lowson. I recently was able to get State Farm insurance, and I was told that if my house burns and I choose not to rebuild, the amount of money I would get from my insurance policy is the amount it cost to build it in 1981 minus depreciation plus any improvements I could validate with receipts.
Right.
Is that true?
Yes, and I think the process to understand is that insurance is meant to put a roof over your head, one, but two, settlements insurance are tax-free. So it isn't an investment tool that, like, some people feel that this is going to take care of the future. It's meant to do that. Now, I've had some folks as far back as the Oakland fire that due to the catastrophic event, the insurance company came in and they just paid them one check, face value of the policy, and said, thank you very much. Please put your life back together. But when it's a smaller event, if you're not going to focus and direct the money towards a structure, they will depreciate labor costs and some of the material costs, because that is what is built into the value.
I feel like what you're saying is negating what Robert just validated. He thinks that he would get the amount of money for his house and just be able to go buy something else, when that doesn't sound really like what he's going to get based on what I just said my insurance agent told me. Okay,
so what I'm hearing you say is that you weren't going to go get a house.
I would definitely go get a house. I would not want to rebuild because I don't want to build in ash territory.
Right.
I don't feel, from what my insurance agent said, which is State Farm, a very reputable company, that I would not be walking away from here with the amount of money that I insured my house for.
Well, I would just like to share my own experience with a grizzly loss. They bought another house. They chose not to, quote unquote, rebuild, but they took the money and they used that money to buy another house. They were not defined in any way, shape, or form. But the existing mortgage was paid off. The balance of that money went towards the other house. It was not reduced in any way. So I can only tell you from my experience and of course the company I work for. But if the money is meant to put a roof over your head, if you're not quote unquote rebuilding, I guess that's the question that I would tell you from my perspective. Our policies don't restrict or require you to build on that site. They require you to rebuild, which is where the extended replacement comes in and the building code upgrades. But if you choose to take your money and go buy another house, you can do that with the value on your policy.
That's very interesting to me. I probably will come talk to you.
Okay. Well, and I want to make sure that
Also,
I want to make sure we're understanding using the right terminology for how we define it. So I would enjoy being able to do that back and forth and then be able to, I know State Farm people all over the place. We'd all have the same conversation. Yeah, we work together. We help each other. And especially now that State Farm is able to write in certain areas after all the years they haven't been. We're very excited that they can give you comprehensive policies.
And this is Terry Brown. We're going to talk about our experience with State Farm in just a minute.
Okay.
Okay.
I'd just like to clarify a question based on what Stephanie said. So she's saying that her insured value is the value that she purchased the house back in the 80s. If she refinances that house when interest rates are really low and pulls more money out, so the value of that house in the 80s was say $100,000. Her house is now worth, say, $1 million. There's a huge gulf between that 100,000 and the million. And maybe she owes 800,000 on it. Is she insured for the original amount of $100,000 of the value in the 80s? That's
yeah. I'm a little I'm kind of a little perplexed by what she said as far as them trying to go back in time to evaluate what the cost of rebuilding was back in 1981. I mean, insurance has, and all policies, comprehensively speaking, have inflation guards. Even the California Fair Plan has inflation guards. They're never meant to stay at what it was back in the past. They're meant to progressively move forward to accommodate the cost of rebuilding. So I
sent me this typed by herself, but sent it in writing. She said the best thing I could do would be to rebuild and sell it.
Well, that I can't speak for another company. I apologize. So it would be a pleasure to work together with the folks that you've worked with and the folks that I know at State Farm and really define this out and bring back a very clear resolution to what you've been told and what our company does. I mean, it's two different worlds.
Yeah, I would think that reputable insurance companies would have very similar coverage.
Yeah,
so
they do.
Yeah.
And I mean, no, please understand. You've just sparked a tremendous amount of curiosity, which I know I could get some answers from very good people to clarify.
Can we, I hate to cut in. Let's take the personal questions to Wanda's office personally. And Wanda, if we, knowing the unique nature of homes in Nevada County, maybe have a discussion with her about replacement costs versus limited replacement costs, if that's even still a form in California. But Bob, I'm going to kick it back to you if we could maybe press on.
I think let's move along. So thank you very much, Wanda. I always appreciate your time and appreciate the information you have to pass on. So let's move on to Terry Brown. He has a real life situation to talk to us about, and he'll fill us in on just what it is to make an insurance claim. So Terry, you're on. I know you're there.
Hang on a second, folks. We're having some internet issues. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, this is Terry, as he said, and my wife Karen's sitting right here next to me also. And I'm going to actually stop our video only because, as I say, we're having some internet challenges. We were with State Farm, by the way, and we had actually nothing but a good experience with them. We immediately,
As far as the land.
yeah, well, they immediately called, when I called them and said we'd had the loss, they said, come down to our office, you need to get some money. And they gave us $10,000 immediately, like the next day. And so today, which is almost exactly 5 months since the fire, correct? Well, 3 days short. We got our final from the county saying that we are good to go. All the toxics are gone. So someone earlier said it should be about 6 months. For us, it was 5 to make it through that. We have chosen not to rebuild. We are actually sitting in our new house right now that we've already bought. And that's because we immediately got almost half of what our house was insured for as a check, plus 30% of what our house was insured for towards the personal property. And in the ensuing months, we got the 191-page adjustment saying this is what it would cost you to replace your house. And then we got another big check, which was basically supposed to be the balance of what the house was insured for, plus the building code and the upgrades and the inflation and all of that that was in it. I will say I did go through that 191-page report and found a couple things that didn't really jive. For instance, the adjuster said our Tesla batteries for the solar system had a value of $2,500. And if anybody's looked at those, it cost us $24,000. So we sent that information to the new adjuster. We actually ended up having 3 adjusters so far. And lo and behold, this last week, we got a notice saying we're cutting you an additional check because yes, your deck was made out of Trex, not lumber. And yes, those batteries were worth a lot more than was on the original one. So we've had a really good experience.
Terry, you've disappeared.
We've lost your audio, Terry.
So I'm sure Terry's trying to get back to us. So Scott, you want to start your part of the presentation, and then when Terry gets back, we'll jump back to him. Can we do that?
Yeah, will do. And hey, Terry, if you got audio, there was a dial-in option if you can do that from your cell phone. So Terry was going to share some of his experience in making that claim and some of the struggles that he went into. I hate to jump to his point, but one of the struggles was proving what he had. Those of you that tuned in to some of our survivor stories last summer heard from Matt, who was the homeowner at ground zero of the Lobo fire, and he explained what he ran into in his multiple claim process. So Wanda shared a ton of great information on the dwelling coverage. So that top arrow and what's going on there. I'm going to focus more on personal property. So if you look at your own declaration page, it's going to look something like this. Coverage A through F is how most of your standard companies operate on the California form. And there's 2 issues with your personal property. There's special limits and there's proof of what you have. Again, Matt, who was ground zero at Lobo fire. His proof was simply he kind of forgot what he had in the outbuilding, and it wasn't until as he lived life through the year, it was a good reminder for him what he had as he, pulled out, wanted to go reach for the tool and it wasn't there. First of all, what is personal property? This is your stuff. It's the items that are not attached to your home. So this is your clothing, this is your lawnmower, this is, again, everything that is not constructed as part of the home build out. And there's two issues, again, that first one being special limits. So if you look at the bottom part of the screen here, there are categorical limits in most policies. To be clear, this is a generic form. Yours could very well be different. And these are old numbers, I might add. But if you have, one really cheap ring, not a big deal. But if you have more jewelry, you could run into a limit of liability of $2,000 total for that claim. So even if personal property up top is for $200,000 and you have, $4,000 worth of jewelry, $4,000 is less than your personal property limit, but you might run into a special limit of liability as related to that category. So if you are a collector or a participant in the activities that would drive any of these types of items, you might want to talk to your agent about scheduling them separate. And this is where you get a rider. And again, you can, schedule that wedding ring or your second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth firearm or whatever you have in your home that would require some additional insurance. So that's, again, our first issue, running up against those special limits. So take a look at your policy. This information should be readily available. If not, just shoot a message to your agent and let them know what you have, and they can tell you what the limits might be. Second issue is proof. What do I mean by proof? It's simply proving the things that you have. Terry had just spoke about that Tesla battery bank and his truck's decking. That's more related to dwelling, but we run into the same issues for personal property. So the goal is to be ready to evacuate, not on paper. So, we talk about having the box, the box that has your estate plan, the box that has your tax documents. It's time to kind of move on from that and get your information up to the cloud. So have documents and pictures saved so that you can evacuate and don't think twice that you have to go back home or take extra time gathering those items. So how do we do that? Just have a way to scan your papers. So Staples locally will scan things for you as long as it doesn't have your social security number on it. Or I said Staples, whatever the, is it Staples, the shop that's in the Brunswick Basin there by the fabric store and the burrito joint? They will scan anything that does not have your social security number on it.
Yes, that's Staples.
Is it Staples? Okay, perfect. If you saw a version of this presentation a year ago, I did feature a different app. Apologies if you use that app. It has become a nightmare since its initial release. I'm using the HP Smart app. Again, use whatever you're comfortable with that helps. It's easy to scan documents. For the proof of taking pictures of your personal property, you don't need an app. You can simply just take good old pictures on your camera phone. So step one is have a way to scan them. Step two, open up some cloud-based storage. Google Drive. I'm a Dropbox user with a couple organizations that use OneDrive for Microsoft, and then SharePoint is the new Microsoft version of it. So there's plenty of options out there. You're simply going to sign up to create an account if you choose to use Dropbox. There is a free version, or I paid $99 for something like a terabyte of information, like more than I will use in my lifetime. So know that you don't even have to pay for many of these cloud services. And then you're just going to create a folder to store all your stuff in. So you can see here, I have a folder called Insurance Pics of Personal Property, and then just all sorts of other documents that we have here for our financials. And then this document or this folder is shared with my wife and I, so that if either of us need to access it, we can do it anywhere we want. So if we have to evacuate and we are in some hotel just, you know, outside the county, we can tap into this and keep life moving. If that was too fast, your third step, again, just find someone younger to explain that whole cloud thing, and they'll get that going for you. So don't, if you didn't follow that up to this point, you're totally good. Not that big of a deal. Now, here's some new information, again, just based on experience. Wanda, cut me off if I'm way off here. Generally speaking, you need to prove what you have. So I have heard a couple horror stories where like the adjuster was asking like how many pairs of underwear and what brand, and you know, like I have heard those stories. Generally at that point, your agent is going to step in and rip that adjuster a new one and tell them to cut a check. So focus on the big things and take pictures. Can't stress this enough. Now, please don't overestimate the scope of this task. If it takes you more than 15 to 20 minutes, you're having too much fun. So remember, as you're walking around your house after this meeting, as in like 20, 30 minutes from now, just take the pictures. If you have a dirty pile of laundry in the corner, it just proves you own more clothing. That's it. You're not staging your house for a realtor. We just need pictures of your stuff. And the advice would be to take general pictures of general things and detailed pictures of unique things. What do I mean by that, and why do I have these two pictures? So pre-pandemic, first 19 years of my career as a financial advisor, I wore the same damn white shirt Monday through Thursday every week for every client meeting. That white shirt was purchased off the rack. It was the same brand, and I got it at JCPenney. I'd have 15 of them, and when the holes were out in the elbows, I went and bought a few more. I don't need to prove that I wear crappy white shirts from JCPenney. I need to show that I have like 15 of the same ones, but you don't need to know what brand it is. Similarly, the suits and ties you see in the back of that picture, the ties are from thrift stores, the suits are off the rack from Men's Warehouse. Again, I don't need to prove. There's nothing unique about those. No one's going to push me on that cost because they don't make them any cheaper than what I own. Now, compared to the right, you might say, okay, but that's a bunch of crappy flannel shirts. What's the big deal? If you zoom in, if you look at those tags, every one of those is from Columbia, just through connections, being an athlete. When I go up to Portland, I get into the employee store at Columbia. So if you see me in a colored collared shirt, it's going to be Columbia or Prana because I get the stuff cheap. Now, if I have to go repurchase that after a fire, the adjuster might want to know why I have a bunch of like $80 flannel shirts. Now, remember, I didn't pay for that $80, but that's what I would need to replace it in the absence of getting back into the employee store. So again, I laid out those shirts so you can see the tags on the Columbia. Again, it's something unique. It's something expensive. I need to be able to prove that to the adjuster. Another example, on the left, general things, 2 bicycles in this picture. The one in back, I don't know, I'm going to say that's a $600 bicycle. There's nothing unique about it. The one in front is kind of unique, and I have some upgraded components. So what did I do? I took a picture, and if you don't know anything about cycling, you don't need to, other than this little doohickey in back that shifts the gears. That's where a lot of the cost is. And true story, I lived in St. Paul. My then girlfriend left her garage door open, and it wasn't a bike like the $2,000 bike you see in that picture. My $6,500 race bike was stolen. I was a competitive triathlete. And I sent the claim in because that was a lot of money for me back then, still is. And they came back and said, that's great. We found a Fuji bike and we've approved your claim for about $500. And I said, yeah, maybe look at the Fuji Aloha. And they came back and said, oh, wow, yeah, that's something different. We approved your claim for $2,200. I said, maybe zoom in on the pictures of the derailleur. That's, again, this little thing. And at that point, the adjuster said, what the hell are you talking about? How much do you need? And I said, I have no idea. Call the bike shop. They know what I ride. And eventually I got about $4,800 back on my $6,500 race bike because I could, again, prove the unique features of that race bike. All right. Last example, if I'm not riding a bike, I only have two other hobbies. I read and I cook. My books, I don't know. I walk into Harmony Books. I ask Stacy, what should I read next week? She gives me a book. I buy it. There's nothing unique. These books are all off the shelf. I happen to have about 10 of these bookshelves with a couple thousand books, and I do have pictures that I have a couple thousand books, but I haven't zoomed in. They're not rare. They're not out of print. They're not anything unique. They're just books. My kitchenware, little different story, which is why I took an extra minute to pull these out of the block so you could zoom in and see that they are Henkel Pro Series S, because I'm a cooking snob and I would want those replaced if I had a total loss. So again, detailed pictures of unique things. So as you think about your own life and how immediately after this meeting you're going to walk around your house and take pictures of your stuff, if you have lots of tools, you can just open the drawer, take a picture of it. If you happen to be a recreational woodworker who pays for the, you don't have a lathe, you have six, and you have really unique, heads on the bits. Maybe a picture of those individual things. But generally speaking, you can walk around your house, panoramic of each room, maybe open up a drawer or two tops, get a picture of it, and then upload it to the cloud and be done with it. So at the very least, take these pictures tonight and do not store them on your laptop. Again, I'm emphasizing the cloud because I had a client in Smartsville who went through a meeting with me where I went through all of her coverages, sent her back to her insurance agent because I don't actually sell insurance, made some adjustments based on what we knew about her situation. She took the pictures and saved them to her laptop. Well, what do you think the first thing the thieves stole when they broke into her living room? The laptop. It was the most valuable thing they could find and grab really quickly. So this is why we want to take some pictures and then just get them out of your house onto the cloud. So that's what I got. I'll obviously be hanging around if you have some questions.
Scott, that was great. And Terry Brown is back now, so he can pick up where he left off before.
Awesome. We'll Tarantino this back to the beginning. Get Terry going.
Yeah. Actually, Scott, that's a great lead back in. Are you getting echo from me?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, we are, Terry.
Okay, I can't, wait a minute, hang on a second. How about now?
Still got an echo.
I've got I tell you what, I'm going to turn the Zoom off and just use the phone. Hopefully that'll work.
Okay. Well, I guess I could always fill in here. Just there's a couple of random questions I have. So Scott, I know you're an athlete. Do you know why scuba divers fall backwards into the water?
No, Bob. Why do scuba divers fall backwards into the water?
Because if they fell forwards, they'd be still in the boat. Don't you really wish Terry was back on the line?
Okay, well, Terry is back on the line.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm just doing Zoom. If it goes out, I had both the phone and the Zoom. Scott's absolutely right about what to do ahead of time. Where the nightmare begins is when you have to actually fill out an inventory listing all of those items, where you bought them, what the value was and such. Now, the law says that the insurance company has to pay you 30% of what your structure was insured for immediately. Then you give them this whole inventory and they do a depreciated value for what everything is on your inventory. And if that value is greater than that 30%, they'll give you another check. If not, they don't. Then when you go out and buy stuff to replace them, you have to give the receipts for what you bought. And if that costs more than what that depreciated value was, then you can get another check. So we started doing just our own situation. We started doing the inventory. It took several hours per room, it seemed like, to try and do that stuff. And we looked at the 30% of the structure value check we got and said, we're not sure we're going to get above that, even if we go through all these hours and hours of work to do it. Other people feel differently. I know another friend who lost their house and they're going through it and they believe they're going to get more money out of it. But just, if it happens to you, or should I say when it happens, be prepared. It's going to be a job on the personal property side of it. But I like to talk about something a little differently, because I think the most important thing is how to prepare for when this happens to us. As the outgoing fire chief of the state said, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when every square foot in California is going to burn. I think we all need to get mentally prepared for the eventuality that our house is going to burn. One of the ways that Karen and I have been preparing for this is that several years ago, we had to evacuate and we basically let the house go at that point. So that was good. We travel a lot. We stay in Airbnbs. And so we're used to using different kitchens. We're used to going to different places. And so it's not such a emotional upheaval to have to be in a different place than a house that we've lived in for 30 years, which we did. So that I think people just need to say to yourselves, how can I be prepared for this? How can I, not let this pull me down into the abyss? Which is, of course, the other part of it, is that we lost stuff. Thank goodness that morning, our fiber optic cable was installed in the house. So my dearly beloved happened to be home, and so she could save our dog. So we got the important things out. We got the live things out. The rest of it is stuff, and we have to be in a position to let that go. I'm going to throw one other thing out, since I am a financial advisor, and this is something for people to think about. Oftentimes we're asked the question, should I pay off my mortgage or not?
Well, that's dramatic. I mean,
Is that the end?
and the answer is, oh, well,
That means you should all hire Terry and find that answer out. That's what that means. Give him a call. He's with Commonwealth. He's right there by Memorial Park. Look him up. Great dude. He's a friend to me in the industry. Reach out to Terry. Get that answer if you should pay your mortgage off or not.
Terry, we lost you again. Maybe I guess he figured it out. He just disappeared. Okay.
Yeah, well, it's not, sorry, it's our internet connection.
There he is. Okay.
I love Smarter Broadband. That's who we're on right now, but we do have our issues with it. I'm not sure where I cut out, but I was going to say, if you don't have a mortgage, you don't have to worry about paying that off. You've got a big hunk of cash. You can go out and buy a house. So, I can make the argument that from a financial standpoint, having a mortgage is using somebody else's money really cheap. But if you have an issue like this and you're not in a situation where you could easily qualify for a new mortgage, you're running a risk that when something like this happens, you'll be renting for the rest of your life, which may not be the worst thing, but that's where you might be.
well, that was quite dramatic, Terry, how you orchestrated that. Anyway.
You mean the
Thanks,
logging in
Terry.
and logging out?
Yeah. I'm sorry that you had the experience to give us all this information. In retrospect, it would be nice if you didn't know all this sort of thing, but thank you very, very much for sharing. And a shameless plug, I hope to see you at the Gold Country Challenge in June.
Yeah. Thanks, Robert.
Okay.
I will say Wanda said something about oftentimes people end up in a better situation than they were before. Karen and I were thinking of downsizing, but we couldn't decide when to do it and how to get what stuff to get rid of and what to keep. So in that way, it took care of it for us. But you really can be in a better situation. I don't recommend this to do it this way, but if you have the right attitude and you keep plugging, you'll make it through this thing. Have the right insurance, do it.
Oh. Another dramatic pause. Well, it makes sense, everything that Terry said. So, okay, Scott, that wraps it up for insurance until the next time we decide to recycle it. So hopefully not in the near future. So.
Indeed. All right, thanks, Bob, for putting that together, and thanks to Terry and Wanda for being our major contributors there. Let's open it up for questions. I know we've hit a couple of them in the chat as we've gone through here, but let's start if we could keep things specific to insurance. But I think we'll open it up for all questions here ultimately. Does anyone have anything for any of our guests or panelists or other community leaders?
Yes.
Scott,
this is for Patrick Mason. Was there a limit on how many waste bins Consolidated had access to? Was it, because you got this grant and you're starting to deliver these now. Are there more waste bins, I guess is what I'm saying.
So when we applied for the grant, it was a $15,000 maximum grant that we could apply for. And talking with Waste Management, it's about $1,000 per waste bin to get rid of. So we allotted for 15 of them. Now that could depend on some weight. So I've got 13 of them out there right now, assigned, kind of keeping that 2-bin buffer. But if we do have some funds left over, we can go with a 20-yard bin. We can go with a 16-yard bin. So a little bit of buffer there at the end, but we've pretty much used up what we were allotted for.
Thanks, Patrick. And Jeff for asking the question. I'm pulling from the queue here. So there was a statement that some states like Hawaii have statewide insurance. Is that a possibility in California? So we do not have for-profit only choices. We sort of already do have that. Wanda, if you want to hit on the details, I'll just start by saying that your Cal Fair plan, insurers are forced to throw into a pool. That is what it is not, is it's not subsidized. So why it's so expensive is because it's so expensive. If you look at the balance sheet, or sorry, the profit and loss statements of insurance companies in California, specifically related to rural companies, they have been losing their ass for a while. So that's why things are expensive. It's not like price gouging because they can. It's mostly because they're losing. So Wanda, I don't know if you want to add on that, or the next question, which I am going to kick over to you, if you could unmute, is how do you prove you're in a FireWise community, and do insurance companies want this proof to give you a discount? Unmute. Wanda, unmute. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Addressing the California Fair Plan, once you understand that it is an association of insurance carriers in the state of California, it was created for areas that were uninsurable many moons ago, and now has become the majority of fire risk areas' sole source of insurance. It has its own funding base because it's been around for such a long time and it's done a good job that way. But every carrier that's an admitted carrier in the state of California shares in the loss ratio depending on what their percentage of ownership of exposure is in the state. So I guess a good thing to know is that they won't run out of money to take care of any of their claims. The flip side to all of this is most insurance carriers came into California with a premise that a policy would be on the books for a period of 10, 15, maybe 20 years, in some cases 30 years, and never have a loss. Due to the environmental changes and the risk factors that we deal with now, when you look at the dollars and cents of how insurance works and the gentleman sharing his loss ratio and how much money they're going to be getting, there's never that much money in a bank to pay out. So ratios and calculations have to be done on perhaps a projected 5-year loss ratio. Is it probable in this area that within a 5-year period? The studies are so thorough now. You know, our tree mortality went from 70% 2 years ago to 80%. And it takes 5 to 7 years before we even recognize it. So I'm very comfortable with the California Fair Plan being able to pay the bill and not going insolvent. And I think that's really important for people to understand. I agree with that. The dogs, they're making noise. I'm on sound. Please take them. I apologize. The puppies came in the room. Sorry.
So Wanda and Paul Cummings, you know the rules. We're 2 years into the pandemic. If your animals make an appearance audibly or visually, they must be introduced. Wanda, Paul, go ahead.
Oh, you're kidding. You want to see them?
It's a rule. I didn't make up the rule. I just enforced it. I'm sorry.
Oh my, bring them back.
My son's cat, Sabra. He likes to sit
Oh,
on my lap during the meetings.
just bring them in. Open the door. All right, come on, girls. I don't know. Oh, they're gonna come over here. All right. This is Lacey. Maggie, come here, your turn. Come on, up, 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 up. I tell her not to jump, and now I have to do it. And this is Magnolia.
Adorable. Thank you all for sharing and making sure we weren't in violation of any Zoom meeting rules. I really appreciate your compliance with it.
That's the other animal in the room.
Fantastic.
Hey, Scott,
Yep.
Pat put a link in the chat of how people can check if they're in a Firewise community, but I am also going to share my screen here really quick to show everybody that if you can't remember what's in the chat, you go to our website, you click on Firewise communities, and right here at the top, click here for a countywide map of Firewise communities. So this is where you or anybody you're talking to, if they say, hey, I don't know if I'm in a Firewise community, you send them to our website, nccoalitionfwc.com, and it's easy to Google. Firewise communities, boom, it's right there.
Fantastic. All right, last call for questions before we wrap up.
I would like to say something.
Oh, go ahead.
I just want to thank when you put out the code emergency and to call 211. I was so impressed at the service that I got. Within an hour, CAL FIRE was here and dug me out. And you can't imagine how appreciative of I was. And the person that was heading them said, you can't stay here, you need to get out. And they were great. I really appreciate that they were there for us.
That's great feedback. Thank you so much. All right. So Virginia, I'm going to steer you further up in the chat. That question was answered a little bit earlier, or if you want further details, you can reach out to the Fire Safe Council. And then we're just going to wrap up. I want to plug our next meeting. We had
March 1st.
we had some success with the neighborhood or the early warning systems last year. We got really good feedback that you all liked hearing from your neighbors on what they were doing to stay safe, and knowing that whether it's code red or the high-low siren or the formal methods of getting the word out to the community are great. It's good to hear what happens when those systems fail and when we need some redundancy. We have a new group, or just a spinoff of the existing ham radio group that's doing some amazing work with networked radios.
I don't want
and they're going to be with us to talk about that. And then we'll be sharing some other tips from your neighbors as related to those early warning systems. So that is 1 month from now on Tuesday, March 1st, and we hope to see you there. We're going to stop the recording at this time and wish you all a good night, but a few of us will be hanging back if you have additional questions. Thanks, everyone.